the weight of broken promises. The hospital room smelled like disinfectant and dying flowers. Mom's breathing had become shallow, a sound like wind through autumn leaves, beautiful and heartbreaking. Sarah sat in the plastic chair beside the bed, holding her mother's papery hand, trying to memorize the feel of it before it was gone forever. "Take care of them," her mother whispered, her eyes fixed on Sarah's face. "Especially Marcus. He's strong, but strength can become hardness if no one reminds him to stay soft." Sarah nodded, unable to speak, unable to understand how the universe could be cruel enough to steal their mother while their father was already gone. The world felt so fragile already. That was 3 months ago. Now, standing in the attorney's office, Sarah understood what her mother had meant. "The house will be held in trust," the lawyer explained, "until Marcus reaches 35, at which point he'll inherit it fully. Until then, you three are to share it equally, and the estate provides for." "That's bullshit," Marcus interrupted, his jaw clenched so tight Sarah could see the muscle pulse beneath his skin. Mom couldn't have known what she was doing. She was on morphine. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the hardwood floor like a scream. "Marcus, that's not what Sarah began. Stay out of this, Sarah." His eyes were glacial. "You're not, Mom. Stop trying to be." That was when it started, not the betrayal itself, but the crack that would eventually split their family into irreparable pieces. Marcus was the eldest by 5 years. He'd been their rock after their father died, barely 18, already holding everyone together. He'd deferred college, taken a job at the construction company, made sure there was food on the table. When their mother got sick, he was there through every appointment, every treatment, every night she cried about things left undone. They'd all loved him for it. They'd trusted him completely. So when he started changing after the funeral, Sarah tried to be patient, but patience has limits. 3 months after the will was read, Marcus came home with a woman named Vanessa, hollow-eyed blonde, with manicured nails and a predatory smile. Within weeks, she'd moved into the house. Within months, she'd moved into their mother's room. And Marcus had become someone none of them recognized. "We need to talk about money," he announced one evening, Vanessa's hand draped across his shoulder like a possession. "T, I've been thinking this house is too big for all of us. Why don't you two find your own places? I'll buy you out. Vanessa and I want to renovate, make it ours." Sarah stared at him. "Mom's only been gone 9 months. Mom's gone," he said, and his voice was so cold it seemed to freeze the very air. "And I'm done playing guardian to 2 adults. Their youngest brother, Daniel, had just turned 20. He'd spent the last year barely keeping it together, working part-time and taking online classes, trying not to think about the mother-shaped hole in his chest. Now he looked at Marcus like he didn't recognize him. "You promised Mom you'd take care of us," Daniel whispered. "I promised Mom a lot of things when I was desperate," Marcus said, standing up. "I was 18 years old, grief-stricken, and making promises to a dying woman. I didn't know who I'd become. And who have you become?" Sarah's voice was steady, though her heart was fracturing. "Someone who replaces our mother in her own bed before her headstone's even engraved." Marcus's face twisted with rage. "You don't get to judge me. You coasted through everything. You were in school, building your career, writing in your little journal about your feelings. I was here. I was carrying all of you, and now you're punishing us for it." Sarah stood, her voice rising. "Is that what this is? You think you deserve to steal the house Mom left us all? I'm not stealing anything, okay? I'm offering to buy you out at a fraction of what it's worth, with money you're getting from the estate Mom provided. You're using our mother's legacy to rob us." The words hung in the air between them like poison gas. Marcus's eyes went flat. "Get out. Excuse me? Get out of my house. You and Daniel, both. You have 2 months. Those 2 months were a masterclass in how quickly love can curdle into something unrecognizable." Daniel cried. Sarah raged, and Marcus with Vanessa's influence whispering in his ear like a demon, began to tighten his grip on everything. He changed the locks, refused to let them take anything that wasn't explicitly theirs. He hired a lawyer who specialized in property disputes and began the process of freezing them out entirely. Sarah found a small apartment for herself and Daniel. She started working extra shifts at the hospital where she was a nurse, picking up night shifts and doubles, burning herself out, trying to keep them afloat while dealing with the loss of their mother and the betrayal of their brother. Daniel withdrew into himself, skipping classes, calling in sick to work, spending his days staring at walls. Sarah recognized the signs of depression. She saw them every day at work in other patients, but it was different when it was your brother, when it was your failure to keep him together. "You should sue him," one of her colleagues said over coffee. "What he's doing is probably illegal." Sarah shook her head. "It's family. Besides, the legal fees would bankrupt us. Your brother sounds like a sociopath." Sarah didn't argue, but she thought about what her mother had said. "He's strong," quote, "but strength can become hardness if no one reminds him to stay soft." No one had reminded him, or perhaps he didn't want to hear it anymore. Years passed. Marcus built a life with Vanessa in the house. They renovated it, completely eradicating their mother's presence, painting over her favorite colors, removing the garden she'd cultivated, replacing every gentle thing with sharp, minimalist aesthetics and cold marble floors. Sarah would sometimes drive by the house and barely recognize it. It seemed like a mausoleum to her own family's death. Daniel eventually got better. He graduated, found work, slowly put his life back together. But there was a distance in his eyes now, a guardedness that hadn't been there before. When he spoke about Marcus, it was without anger, just a kind of exhausted indifference, which somehow felt worse. Sarah built a good life too. She earned promotions, found a partner named Alex who loved her fiercely, bought a small house of their own. But she carried the weight of the family's fracture like a stone in her chest, never quite able to set it down. Then, 5 years after their mother died, Marcus's business partner, the one he'd been relying on to handle day-to-day operations while he played landlord and contractor, discovered something. Vanessa had been embezzling, not small amounts, not the kind of thing you could wave away or rationalize. Skatine, she'd been systematically funneling money out of the business for 3 years, covering her tracks with forged receipts and falsified accounts. When the discovery was made, the business was hemorrhaging tens of thousands of dollars. Marcus tried to press charges, but the investigation revealed something else he'd known. Or at least, he should have known. His business partner found evidence that Marcus had signed off on questionable expenditures, that he'd been present for some of the fraudulent transactions, that his willful blindness had enabled Vanessa's theft. The business collapsed. The legal fees were astronomical. By the time the dust settled, Marcus had lost everything. The house had to be sold to cover the debts. His reputation in the industry was destroyed. Vanessa, facing criminal charges, had drained their joint accounts and disappeared, leaving him with nothing but the wreckage. Sarah was at work when she got the call, her brother's number, which he hadn't heard from in 4 years. "I need help," he said without preamble. His voice was hollowed out, unrecognizable. She almost hung up. Every part of her wanted to hang up and block the number and pretend that Marcus's karma was his own reckoning to face. After what he'd done to her and Daniel, after years of silence, after choosing a predatory woman over his own family, why should she help him? But he was still her brother, and her mother had asked her to take care of him. That night, she sat across from him in a coffee shop. He'd aged a decade in 4 years. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands shaking as he wrapped them around a mug of untouched tea. "I don't know what to say," he began. "Then don't," Sarah said quietly. "Tell me what you need." Over the next few months, she helped him find a lawyer who could negotiate his case, helped him apply for jobs he was qualified for, helped him find a small studio apartment he could afford. She didn't do it because she'd forgiven him, She did it because her mother had made her promise, and because sometimes the most profound act of love is helping someone who has irreparably hurt you. But she didn't pretend that everything was okay. She didn't erase the betrayal or act like the years of rejection hadn't happened. A year later, Marcus invited her to coffee. He looked healthier. He's gotten a job working for a nonprofit that built affordable housing, a far cry from his previous career, but something with purpose. "I've been seeing a therapist," he said, "trying to understand why I did what I did. Why I let myself become that person." Sarah waited. "After Mom died, I was so angry," he continued. "Angry at God, angry at the universe, angry at myself for not being able to save her. And when the lawyer said I'd have to wait to inherit the house, I felt like the universe was punishing me for my grief. I felt like I deserved to be angry and bitter and to take what I wanted." He stirred his untouched coffee over and over again. "Vanessa found me in that anger. She didn't create, she just knew how to use it. And I let her, because it felt good to be selfish after years of being the responsible one. But the cost." He looked up at Sarah, and she saw genuine remorse in his eyes. Not the kind that comes from getting caught, but the kind that comes from truly understanding what you've destroyed. "I can't fix what I did," he said. "I can't give you back the house, or the money, or the family we had. And I don't expect forgiveness." Sarah felt tears on her cheeks. "Do you know what hurts the most?" she said softly. "It's not what you did to me. It's what you did to yourself. It's with so much capacity for love and leadership and kindness. And you threw it away for someone who never cared about you." "I know," Marcus said, and he was crying too. "I know that now." They didn't magically become close again. Forgiveness isn't a light switch. It's a long, complicated process that requires constant intention. But they began to rebuild something. It's not what they'd lost, because you can never truly recover what time has taken, but something new, something honest. Daniel tentatively began to include Marcus in his life again. There was still caution in how he interacted with his eldest brother, still a guardedness that grief had etched into his bones, but there were also moments of genuine connection, conversations that went deeper than surface pleasantries. Sarah learned that forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation had to look like it once did. It meant acknowledging that her brother had suffered, not because he deserved less, but because suffering is the natural consequence of cruelty. And sometimes people have to experience the weight of their choices to understand the damage they've caused. She also learned that protecting herself was not the same as being unforgiving. She set boundaries with Marcus. She didn't resume their former closeness. She didn't pretend the betrayal hadn't happened. But she also didn't carry the poison of her anger anymore, because she'd realized that holding on to rage against her gay brother was like drinking poison and expecting him to get sick. On the anniversary of their mother's death, the three of them stood together in the cemetery, placing flowers on her grave. "I wonder what she would think," Daniel said quietly, "about all of this." "She'd probably be disappointed," Marcus said, "and heartbroken. But I think she'd also be proud that we didn't destroy each other completely." Sarah touched the gravestone, tracing her mother's name. "She knew it was all going to fall apart," she said. "That's why she asked me to take care of him. She knew I was the only one strong enough to do it." "That's not fair to you," Marcus said quietly. "No," Sarah agreed. "It wasn't, but I did it anyway, because she was my mother, and because you're my brother, and because sometimes love means staying even when staying hurts." The three of them stood together in the autumn sun, surrounded by the graves of the dead, each carrying their own weight of grief and betrayal and complicated, messy forgiveness. They would never be what they were before. The family had been shattered, and you cannot glue broken things back together without the cracks still showing. But they were still standing, still together, still trying. And perhaps their mother whispered from whatever place held her now, maybe that was enough. If you liked the story, do well to comment, like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories.